I think we can proceed.
Okay, please, the court. Your Honour, I just had referred to a particular text message. I just remind the court that this text message in relation to the illegal shoulder charge came on the 25th of September 2019. Your Honour will recall that in the cross-examination of Mr Rolfe, a lot of these messages were put chronologically so Your Honour could see the deterioration in behaviour and in mental health, and that is followed in our written submissions. 25th of September 2000, video of a foot chase to his family in breach of Northern Territory Police Force policy and possibly the law. In his message to his family, he again took pride in the dominance he was able to exert through force over the locals, his words, and he expressed amusement that he had hospitalised a man who police had not in fact been trying to arrest. The text is, "The main chase body-worn is mine, ha-ha, treated him to the old illegal shoulder charge. Because I wear body armour, I'm not as ha-ha, don't run from police." In relation to the issue of whether or not language can desensitise police officers, Mr Rolfe said, I asked him, "Do you think now you have more awareness about how problematic the use of that language is than when you did when you were in the police force?" And he replied, 100%. This is at transcript 5138 on the 26th of February this year. When I asked him, "Can you tell Her Honour about that?" he said that his racist language can dehumanise someone. And that's been used in the past by military in war situations. It's used. Mr Rolfe is a clever man. He's just not a celebration of the use of force. It's a salutary lesson for this police force. They need to be supported, and I'll come to that as my last topic and ways in which they could be supported better. But this behaviour and these attitudes, team. In my written submissions, in your written submissions on behalf of counsel assisting, we point out it's a great shame, in particular in relation to Sergeant Bowens, because as the head of the IRT, he performed an important role in terms of mentoring, and that is set out in detail, and I won't trouble the court with it in my oral submissions. I do want to turn briefly to sugarcoat the conduct of Officer Sergeant Kirkby, who should have been performing a role of mentor. On the 3rd of September 2019, Sergeant Kirk said, "Sorry about the stress caused by losing my shit the other night. Stress you didn't need. You sorted it well. I just had enough." He was the second person to press my button that night. Mr Rolfe replied, "Bro, there was literally no stress about it. I'm all for it and be a dramatic cunt for the film. Ha ha." And Sergeant Kirkby replied, "And the Oscar goes to ha ha." A simple question about the meaning of those text messages, he answered on at least 6 occasions that he didn't know what they meant, which was frankly ridiculous. He vacillated between having no or only limited memory of the context for the message. He gave a detailed description of the apprehension of an Aboriginal, elaborated to refer to a dynamic police pursuit apparently involving Sergeant Kirkby leaping over fences and concluding with him grabbing or tackling the Aboriginal man and crashing into a shed. It was fanciful. Sergeant Kirkby accepted that if he tackled the Aboriginal man and it was in it, that he would have submitted a use of force custody notification, a CNE, as required by the general orders. He first said he would have done, Port, because he wanted to cover up having lost his temper. He said, "No, I don't know. I don't know." It's put on his behalf by counsel who have come in at a late stage that counsel assisting have totally mischaracterised and unfairly summarised the model of behaviour that Sergeant Kirkby demonstrated to Mr Rolfe on the few occasions they directly worked together. I reject that. It's put on his behalf that, for example, with respect to the relevant text message I just read, the more reasonable assessment of this. That's ridiculous, with respect, Your Honour. I'm not sure whether or not I withdraw that. It's not helpful, and it's not consistent with the evidence. Your Honour would find that both were not credible in relation to the incident that happened in relation to someone losing their shit, but it's impossible to find out now because it wasn't properly reported. What it is an example of very poor mentoring and a disregard for the policies and procedures of the Northern Territory Police. I commend to Your Honour the evidence that was given by a very well-respected former police officer, former Superintendent Scott Pollock, in relation to the importance of mentoring. And I'll cite his evidence elsewhere. But in relation to the importance of Sergeant Pollock, one of the most highly regarded and experienced officers in the Northern Territory at the time he retired, Superintendent Pollock expressed his disappointment that the racist text exchanges between Mr Rolfe and his supervisors had occurred and that the behaviour had not been identified. He agreed that Mr Rolfe should have been identified and acted upon. The exchange he had with senior counsel for the Parumpuruka recordings that were sent to Mr Rolfe's family of Aboriginal persons, and he's laughing about the applications of the use of force. It was suggested to Superintendent Pollock that they were clear warning signs that he was engaging in inappropriate behaviours and not fit to be a police officer in the Northern Territory at that time. And Superintendent Pollock replied, "An absolute red flag." Were identified earlier. In relation to the disciplinary process forms, when red flags were identified, red flags that Mr Rolfe was using force in an alarming number of circumstances which were resulting in injury for Aboriginal persons, and that he was turning off his body-worn video, that Mr Rolfe had perjured himself in proceedings in 2019. We haven't asked Your Honour to make factual findings in relation to what happened with respect to the Ryder matter, but rather the failings in relation to the disciplinary process that followed and the significance of the attitudes expressed by a number of police officers in relation to those events. Your Honour, I propose to speak for another hour in terms of using up my 2 hours' time. I'm told I'm an hour down. I'm also told that there's an issue with the live stream currently and that it might be appropriate to take a short break, morning tea break now, in order for it to be resolved.
We'll take a 15-minute adjournment.